Okay, class, we're about to start section 5.2, adding or subtracting decimals. Section A, we have adding or subtracting decimals. The main rule is line up the decimals and the corresponding place values, then add or subtract. Okay, we're going to scroll down here, and we're going to look at the tips to help you. Now we have, remember that you can add zeros to the end of the number after the decimal point to even up the length of the numbers. Second, the normal rules for combining positive and negative numbers apply. If they have the same sign, you will add them. If they have opposite signs, you will subtract, and the answer takes the sign of the larger number. It is always a good idea to estimate before you do a decimal arithmetic problem. That will help you be sure you have not misplaced a decimal in your final answer. Now that is a good rule of thumb. However, for this exercise, we're not going to estimate. We're just going to do the problem as is. So let's take a look at example 1. Example 1, we have 19.52 plus 5.371. Now, I took the liberty of setting this problem up already. So the first thing you do is line these problems up vertically. So we do the 19.51, and then we line up the decimals here. We line up the ones place, the tenths place, the hundredths place, and if you notice that this one here, which is in the thousands place, has nothing above it. This one here that is in the tenths place, the tens place, has nothing in front of it as well. So behind this decimal, what we're going to do, we're going to put 0 here as a placeholder. This is so that these numbers here will be just as long as these numbers on the bottom. Now, the main purpose of that statement earlier about making the numbers so that they would be the same length, they're mainly talking about behind the decimal, not in front of the decimal. So now we add this. We have 0 plus 1, which is 1, 2 plus 7, which is 9, 5 plus 3, which is 8. We bring down our decimal. 9 plus 5 is 14. We have our 4, and we need to carry the 1. So now we have 1 plus 1, which is 2, which leaves us 24.891. Okay, now we're going to move on to problem number 2. Now with problem number 2, again, we're going to line this up so it'll go vertically. So we have 0.125. Now we're going to add. Now what we have here is this here. We have this ones place here. But before we do the ones place, we must put our decimal. Okay, now we have this 0 in the ones place. And this 422.8, this 2 is in the ones place. And we'll put the other 4 and 2 ahead of it. So it's 422, our decimal, and this 8 is in the tenths place, which goes under this 1. Okay, now we can add in 2 zeros. So the amount of numbers we have behind our decimals is the same. So now we add this up. We have 5 plus 0, which is 5, 2 plus 0, which is 2, 8 plus 1 is 9. You bring down the decimal. 0 plus 2 is 2, and then we bring down our 42. So we have 422.925. Now we scroll down here to number 3. This is a subtraction problem. Now, we're going to line this up vertically like we did with the addition problems. So we would take 6.7, and then it'll be minus. Now we have a 3 in the ones place, and our decimal. 9 is in the tenths place, 2 is in the hundredths place. Now we will put a 0 here as a placeholder. Now, in this problem, which is a little different than the other problems, that we added zeros in. Let's talk about that for a hot minute. Okay, first of all, with addition, you don't have to include the 0, no matter if it's in the top or if it's in the bottom, because it's addition. If it's nothing there, you would just bring the number down. But in subtraction, what makes subtraction a little different is this here. If you have a number on the bottom here, and this bottom number, but no number here, like I put this 0 here as a placeholder, you must have that 0 there because you do need to borrow. Okay, so now let's subtract. So we know we cannot take 2 from 0. So we go over here to the 7 and borrow 1 from the 7, which gives us 6. And the 1 we borrow will make this 0 a 10. So now we have 10 minus 2, which is 8. Now we cannot subtract 9 from 6. So we have to go to the 6 here and borrow 1 from the 6. And that will be 5. And this 6 will become 16. So 16 minus 9 is 7. And you bring down your decimal. 5 minus 3 is 2. So our final answer here is 2.78. Okay, now we move to example 4. Now we do the same thing. We line this up vertically. Now with 73, you notice there's no decimal showing. Whenever you have an integer with no decimal in the problem, it's always assumed that it's a decimal at the end of that number, even though you don't see it. So now we'll go down here. We'll put minus. Now we have 29. The 9 is in the 1's place, and the 2 is in the 10's place. And we bring down our decimal. Now, we will have 31 behind the decimal of the 29. So we had 29.31. We will have to add 2 zeros up here as placeholders. Now we can subtract. We cannot subtract 1 from 0. So we need to go over here to this 3 and borrow 1. This 3 would become 2. This 0 here would be 9, which I explained to you in another class. And this 0 here would be 10. 10 minus 1 is 9. 9 minus 3 is 6. We bring down our decimal. We cannot subtract 9 from 2. So we have to borrow 1 from this 7 and make that a 6. So this 2 would become 12. So now we add 12 minus 9, which is 3, and 6 minus 2, which is 4. So our final answer is 43.69. Now we are about to start examples 5 and 6. With example 5, we notice here that we have a negative 5.4 minus 9.63. This is assumed that they both have the same sign, so we are going to add them. So the first thing, we would take negative 5.4, then we'll bring our decimal here, and we know our 9 is in the 1's place, and our subtraction sign. This 6 will go under the 4, and we will write our 3 here. Now remember, we'll put a 0 here as a placeholder. Since they have the same sign, you add them together and carry the sign. So we know our final answer is going to be negative. 0 plus 3 is 3. 4 plus 6 is 10. And we carry our 1 and bring down our decimal. 9 and 5 is 14 plus 1 is 15. So it's a negative 15.03. Okay, now we go to problem number 6. Now if you notice here, we have this minus and a negative sign. We know that becomes addition. So really this problem is negative 1.05 plus 7.2. Now we know since they have different signs, we're going to subtract. I would suggest that we put the larger number as the number on top when we do it vertically. So I would suggest that we put 7.2 at the top, and then minus, it'll be 1.05. And we'll put a 0 here as a placeholder. Now we know we cannot subtract 5 from 0, so we borrow 1 from the 2. And this 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 1 minus 0 is 1. You bring down your decimal. 7 minus 1 is 6. So your final answer is 6.15. Okay, now we scroll down here to number 7. Now we need a little bit more room for number 7. So let me clear up some space here for number 7. Okay, now with number 7, we have two operations here. We have addition and we have subtraction. So remember, in adding or subtracting, we can only do two numbers at a time. So let's do our order of operations, and we will add first. So we would take 11.21 plus, this would be 46.013. Now we will add a 0 here. Now this is a smudge mark. This is a 4. So we add 0 plus 3, which is 3. 1 plus 1, which is 2. 2 plus 0, which is 2. Put our decimal here. 1 plus 6 is 7. And 1 plus 4 is 5. So that's 57.223 minus 362.526. Now, these have different signs. This is positive and this is negative. We know we're going to subtract. So what I would suggest we do is put the larger number first, and I'm discounting the sign for right now. So we will put the 362.526, and then this is negative. And since this is positive, we'll put plus. This would be 57, our decimal, and 223. Now remember, even though you see addition here, because these have different signs, we're actually going to subtract. So we could say 6 minus 3 is 3. 2 minus 2 is 0. 5 minus 2 is 3. Bring down your decimal. Now we cannot subtract 7 from 2, so we'll borrow 1 from this 6. So that would be 5, and this 2 would be 12. 12 minus 7, we know is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0, and we bring down our 3. Now since the 362.526 is the larger number, we'll bring down our negative sign. So it's negative 305.303. Next we come down to section B. Okay, we have number 1. We have evaluate y minus z. Y is 11.6 and z is 10.8. So we substitute. I tell you to always put these values in a parenthesis, and for some reason we have something that just appeared on the screen. Let me clear that up. Okay, we had a little technical difficulty there, but we will substitute now. Y is 11.6, and I always tell you when you substitute, put 11.6 in parentheses, minus z. Your z, whatever your value for your z, which is 10.8, goes in a parenthesis. Now what we would do here is there's nothing we can do in this parenthesis or this parenthesis. So we will line this up. We have 11.6 minus 10.8. Now we know we cannot subtract 8 from 6. So we'll borrow 1 from this 1, which will leave 0. And this 6 will become 16. 16 minus 8 is 8. Bring down our decimal. 0 minus 0 is 0. And 1 minus 1 is 0. So our answer here is 0.8. Now, before we started the last problem, remember this problem came down and kind of confused that problem a little bit. So this was actually before that last problem. So let's do this. It says subtract 19 from 25.91. So we'll put the 25.91 first, minus 19. And we'll put a decimal and 2 zeros here. 1 minus 0 is 1. 9 minus 0 is 9. We cannot subtract 9 from 5. So we'll borrow 1 from this 2. And the 5 will become 15. 15 minus 9 is 6. And 1 minus 1 is 0. So it's 6.91.